I'm Sean Fennessey.
I'm Amanda Dobbins.
And this is The Big Picture, a conversation show about Dumpuary. Today, we're talking about a bunch of new movies. We have multiple guests. Later in the episode, Chris Ryan will show up to talk about some doodly films that are hitting theaters. But we're joined by a special guest in studio, Yasi Salek. Hi, Yasi.
Hi, Sean.
How are you doing?
Amanda.
Hi, Yasi.
I'm great.
Hanging in there?
Best year of my life.
Okay, great. Wonderful. You're here for a very specific reason, because one of the movies that was released this January, this Dumpuary, is called Better Man. I think Better Man came up when we... Did it come up when we talked about Moana 2?
Yes.
And you were like, I'm interested in this.
Yeah.
What is this?
Since I saw it on twitx.com a while back, I was like, what's this? I'm intrigued.
And Amanda, what is Better Man?
So it is a biopic about the British musical star Robbie Williams, wherein Robbie Williams is played by a CGI monkey.
I'm sorry, just not to be like split hairs, but it is a chimpanzee.
I actually, as I was saying monkey, I was like, I don't actually think that I have the right
I have also
classification
been
here.
calling it
Thank
monkey
you.
movie,
Okay.
but then I did a bit of research and it is a chimpanzee. Monkeys have tails. This is a chimpanzee. It does not have a tail.
Interesting. Okay, so I don't think I understood that delineation.
I didn't either.
Is there a meaningful difference in the execution of the movie? If this were a monkey, would it be closer to a Planet of the Apes style tail?
I mean, honestly, when I thought about that, it was more just like a tail is so unnerving. So I think that they made the right choice.
Well, also,
I can assure you this is no less unnerving.
then you have to
it's too much with the tail.
Then you have
There's
to
a lot
adjust
of
the
butt.
wardrobe for the
That's true.
exactly.
That's
you know,
true.
and the chimpanzee, I almost said monkey, I'm sorry, is like dressed like all the other humans around him.
Mm-hmm.
Sexily.
Yeah, I mean he's
hot chimpanzee?
No, I'm just saying they're dressed sexily. That's the whole for the take that portion of
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. I mean, let's talk about Robbie Williams before we get into the actual movie itself, because Robbie Williams is a name that I think many people between the ages of 30 and 60 have probably heard.
Mm-hmm.
He is quite famous in the UK.
Very, yeah.
Significantly less famous in the United States. He did make an attempt to break through in the US, which didn't really take. Yeah. But he has been kind of in the firmament of celebrity in the United Kingdom for a long time.
Oh, and the United Kingdom very much so. Yeah.
This movie is a pretty significant risk in the United States. We'll talk about that risk that was taken. But, you know, I think you and I have had mostly the same experience with Robbie Williams, which is that I'm sure we were aware of and had heard Take That songs. And then when he went solo, he came through with Millennium, which is, of course, a kind of morphed adaptation of a James Bond song delivered in the style of like a Frank Sinatra dance ballad.
Sure.
Right?
Everything that you just said was like a really, really normal.
Kind of accurate, though?
Yes, it is. I mean...
And
Robbie
song
Williams
didn't hit.
Despite Millennium and despite us all...
What about Angels, you guys? Angels
I don't know what that is.
How have you never heard?
Well, what charted higher in the U.S.? You got to consider where we were. We basically grew up in a suburban existence watching MTV all day.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
so I got Millennium and that's it. And also...
Are you whisper singing Angels?
I don't want to unleash my full singing voice
You're
here.
holding your voice back.
I don't think
Okay.
The Big Picture is prepared for that.
Okay.
But
I
don't know what charted higher.
You had a very different experience than we did with Robbie Williams.
Yeah, I don't vary. Like, it's not my favorite artist that I had as posters on my wall. Take That did not exist to me.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah, because that was I went to high school partially in Singapore because I am the most interesting woman in the world, and I moved there in like '97, which is when Robbie Williams went solo. So Take That, nothing to do with me, but he was very big on MTV Asia. So I knew Angels, I knew Millennium.
And you liked them?
I just knew them.
Okay.
No, I wasn't, I was listening to some real shit, some real guitar-based shit.
Same.
But I knew it, like it was in the ether. Like I know those songs when I hear them, they're very familiar to me.
There were a number of other, obviously this is sort of at the, I guess sort of the tail end of the Britpop explosion when he came along.
Yeah, because I think Be Here Now came out in
96? Oh, 98. Okay.
So am I wrong?
I don't even remember.
I think it's 98.
Okay.
Bobby can fact check for us. Sorry, I'm not allowed to
I was
ask.
just in the middle of
97.
fact checking. Angels charted higher.
Yeah,
53
that's what
was its
Angels
peak
is like
position.
a huge song.
Okay. Got past me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely
Don't know what to
no idea
say.
what that is. Be Here Now is
19 weeks on the
97.
chart.
97.
Millennium only peaked at 72 and was only on the chart for 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's also not unrelated, honestly, because Britpop died in 1997 as a result of multiple factors, including Be Here Now, including Noel Gallagher going to 10 Downing in his fuck-ass blazer and his dumb haircut and being like, okay, cool.
Yeah, by the way, old episode of the podcast where just absolute Liam Gallagher slander. I think it was The Brutalist. Yeah. And you and Adam Naiman were just like Team Noel. He's the artist. And I think there are a lot of different definitions of art.
Yeah.
I don't disagree.
I did enjoy that episode because, I'm a brutalist bitch, like I
Yeah.
said.
I know.
And then
thank God
also,
for you.
then you guys had like a mini bandsplain in the middle, and I was like,
Well,
it
I
was
could try
it
and
was a
talk
good
about
episode,
Oasis
but
on
I
here.
just, once again, Liam rules.
You will have plenty of time after you see Oasis live to
Yeah.
really delineate who is the true artist in Oasis. There's no counterpoint, no brother figure in the Robbie Williams story.
No. But what I was going to say is like Robbie Williams going solo is not part of Britpop dying, I think.
It's tangentially connected for sure.
It's ushers in this sort of like new pop thing that happens.
Yeah, I think like Jamiroquai is a part of that. There are a few UK artists who like infiltrated America, and there was this expectation that like there would be a long stream the same way that there was in the 60s.
Yeah.
in the
Well,
British
Spice Girls
invasion.
also
Spice
come
Girls,
out, I
very-
think, in 96
very
or
related,
97.
very connected. And all of that stuff is happening. I regarded it with some curiosity and not a ton of interest. It wasn't exactly British pop is not my favorite kind of music.
Interesting.
But we're talking about stuff that was happening 28, 29, 30 years ago. So this is a very odd subject for a wide release film in the United States. And yet, amongst some people in our lives, this is among the most beloved movies that's come out, despite its huge commercial failure in the US.
Okay, but don't you feel, and not to regurgitate X.com takes, but is not the commercial failure a great deal because no one knows who Robbie Williams is here? Like, I'm
What do you
sure the
think?
monkey chimpanzee aspect has something to do with it, but
Yes, of course. And I think even watching it as a person who knew Millennium and, I actually loves a music biopic, I was like, okay, but who is this person and who are any of these people? And like, what is Take That? I literally just Googled Take That and learned that Gary Barlow is one of this. Okay, but Gary Barlow is someone I've seen on like Graham Norton for like 20 years and have literally never known who he was. That's my
Well, he's a part of this film in the story.
Yeah, I wasn't paying that close attention to that. I have to be honest.
he's like the main antagonist
He-
besides
yes.
the dad.
Yes.
Right. Oh, that's
He's
true.
his
That's right,
bandmate.
Gary. And he
Yes.
goes to the house and
Yeah.
he's like, Gary, I hate
It's
Yeah.
the
you.
same Gary.
But
Yeah.
they don't
point.
say Gary Barlow 45 times
Yeah,
in the
that's
movie.
true.
So I wasn't
It's just
like,
like one
oh,
time.
that guy from, the talk shows that I watch. So yeah, no one knows who he is. And even watching it, you're kind of like, okay, a lot of this is cool, but also like, why and who are these people and what are these songs? And and I think that's the thing. The music isn't as well known here. So
That to me, I think, is the
Yeah.
like hardest, because to bring up a complete unknown, you enjoy it so much because you know the song.
Yes.
And that's why I was like honestly shocked how much I loved Better Man, because I did not know most of the songs and I still loved it. And I was like, wow. And I didn't know that much of the story and I still love it. And I was like, that means it's so good. Because music biopics really just like kind of cheaply play on your like fondness for the music.
They often
That's
do.
most of the enjoyment.
They often do.
Yeah.
There's one specific aspect of this that is different aside from the chimpanzee aspect, which is that Michael Gracie is the director of this movie. Michael Gracie's last movie was The Greatest Showman, which had a kind of a similar arc of like immediate failure, and then it became a huge box office success over an extended period of time at this same time of year. Came out in December, didn't do well, and then for whatever reason held on at the box office, and then was kind of claimed as kind of like a goofball postmodern musical masterpiece. Better Man is sort of trending in that same direction. It's never going to make the amount of money that The Greatest Showman did, but Michael Gracie is actually a very interesting figure. He kind of has a similar background to someone like James Cameron, where he was a VFX artist working behind the scenes on movies for a long time, always had a very dynamic, creative, visual sensibility. the reason why he took this movie on, we can talk about in a little bit, but he's a director who has like an incredible energy in his movies. I don't really love the script of this movie, but I had a lot of fun watching it because, man, it's like so thrilling at times, the way that it's made. Like the camera is flying all over the place. The dance sequences, the choreography,
Like
the way that CGI is
that
deployed.
Take that sequence.
The Rock the DJ.
The
Yeah,
Rock
come
the
on.
Rock
The Rock
DJ
DJ,
sequence
yeah.
is so incredible. One of the great movie scenes of the year. Super fun and exciting and creative. And, this movie was nominated for a Best Visual Effects Oscar. And so the issues that I have with it, aside from not really knowing those songs and not having that pleasure hit that you're talking about when you hear a song you
hate
love.
chimpanzees.
No, I like chimpanzees and I like movies with monkeys and chimps in them as well.
Okay.
I don't really I didn't feel emotionally connected to whatever Robbie Williams' plight was, which was like, guess child neglect? And then the quest for fame? Like the stakes seemed weirdly really low on this movie.
You know how art is like a mirror?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I feel like I'm learning a lot about you right now.
Okay, how so?
No, just that we're like such different kinds of entertainers.
You think I'm an entertainer?
I think I'm an entertainer.
I wouldn't dispute
Yeah,
that, nor would I
sure.
dispute it about you either.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean? Because you do reflect on the child neglect and feel
Well,
seen
we
by
don't
that
have
story?
to get into that just on the tail end of my
into that
house
all the
burning
time.
down.
It's
We've
on
had a
this
lot
show.
of
It's a topic of discussion.
We can. We sure can. I think it was like I said this in my Letterboxd review. That's right, you guys. I have a Letterboxd.
Just scoping for dudes.
That's
right.
right.
Now. Yeah.
Get
yeah.
on here, babe. Get in here.
Yeah, that would be good. Though I'm less comfortable with the Letterboxd.
Community.
Well, like as a meet cute
Sure.
destination than like the Rep Theater. I'd like you to start there.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm just trying to get more followers.
Okay. All right.
I thought it was like literally Jungian the way it. Can I just have a little spiel on the monkey, the
Go ahead.
chimpanzee? First of all, number one, Robbie Williams looks like a monkey,
Mm-hmm.
so already it's working.
Okay.
He has a facial resemblance.
He does, but we all do technically.
No, but like more than most people.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you need to pull up a photo, like look at it.
Okay.
Number two, his whole thing was being dehumanized
Mm-hmm.
by being a clown and an entertainer.
Mhm.
So, okay, we're dehumanizing with a monkey. And he hated himself. And yes, part of that, I think, was child neglect, if you want, or just sort of like the value system foisted upon him by his father, who thought being famous and a star was the most important thing in the world and abandoned him to seek his
Yes.
fortune. But also, sometimes that's just how you're built, you know?
Mhm.
And I just thought it worked so well on all those levels. And that was his plight. His plight was just that he hated himself, and he thought that if he could get enough other people to love him, he would stop hating himself,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very common, I think, trope.
I don't know very
in-
many people who don't feel that way.
Right, but like in Fame, but you didn't connect with it? Are you not a person that ever felt that way?
I think it's always hard when someone who's just tremendously successful and rich is like, I tried really hard to be famous and then I got famous. Like that's not really, it's one of the reasons why I don't really like music biopics
Right.
is that they're often rooted in these sort of, self-mythology around one's own success.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a bland story. It doesn't mean that the way he was feeling isn't valid.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that child neglect and the desire to kind of like authorize your parents' expectations of you isn't a real thing in people's lives. It is. As the structure of a movie, it's just kind of boring. Like I knew where this was going the whole time.
So I'm with Yasi in that I think that the chimpanzee. I'm really trying hard here.
No, I know. I think we can just shorthand monkey. It's okay.
The monkey construct is very clever, both in terms of the story and also like on what you expect with a music biopic. And I like a music biopic, but they are formulaic, and so and they do often hinge on this like, I really tried to be a star or be an artist, and then all these things, often including my mean dad, like held me back, and then I made it, but there were consequences of it. I mean, that is the story of a lot of famous people. I find that interesting. I think like the monkey thing is a clever way to do it. I also think they like do pull off the monkey thing
I
in
agree.
the context of the movie. My problem is like the inherent contradiction that like Robbie Williams is not that famous to me, you know? And so like I'm watching all of this and I'm like, okay, well, like you had a decent amount of success wherever you are. And I remember Millennium, but I'm like,
that's the disconnect. 'Cause he really was like Justin Timberlake. Like that, like for a comp, like he was so famous in the UK.
Yes.
So this story does make sense in the context of his life and the UK. It just like maybe doesn't translate to us. I don't know. Okay, my other thing was like, I don't mind when a plot is wrote in a music biopic, especially because like, would you have wanted it to be like, it's a chimpanzee and we have this crazy different plot? Like, I feel like almost like too much subversion of the form.
I think part of it is because unlike Bob Dylan or Elton John or other people who have gotten this treatment before, I'm not as familiar with the details of Robbie Williams' life. So to learn that this movie about a significantly less famous person was greenlit with a $110 million budget and this big conceit, I would have hoped. And the movie is really audacious in almost every other way.
Yeah.
So it being so audacious in every other way is a credit to it and a reason why I like it. Like generally, I would recommend this movie. It's a cool movie. It's it's much more different than Rocket Man. But
hard pass.
The script itself is like,
why does this podcast have to turn against Elton John? You know, I love
I heard you.
and I'm really happy that you're
Elton
here.
John, and
but we just don't have to take
he
cheap shots.
deserved a better. I
agree. That's the thing.
I hate music biopics
and that's
across the board. They're almost all bad.
That's why this
that's
movie.
Fine.
I'm
Elton
holding
John.
this movie to the
to
same
clarify.
standard.
I think it's better than all of them because here I'll tell you why. I think the failing that most music biopics have, in my humble music expert opinion, is they're too self-serious and it's embarrassing.
This movie is not that. That's fun. It's fun.
And because of that, it's kind of able to like Trojan horse in, to me anyways, more poignancy and more feeling because it's not beating you over the head with. Every time I watch a music biopic with the, I don't know, I made a list. I was like, what are the good ones? They're just so like, you're like, okay.
They are tremendously serious. You don't think this movie is that fun though?
No. It's really, really fun. And then at some point he goes solo and he's just like on a boat singing his like subpar solo stuff to some woman that I've never heard of who I think was also, she was
Nicole
like
Appleton from All Saints.
Nicole Appleton. I have heard of Nicole
who had a
Appleton.
baby with Liam Gallagher.
Sure.
You needed to look at the cast list here so that you could just see who the real people were. Because you're probably, I felt the same way. I'm familiar with most of these people.
But I'm familiar with them in a, like, my diseased, immoral brain still reads the Daily Mail, you know? And so it's like...
In so many ways, you're an Anglophile, yet you did not know about Robbie Williams. Graham Norton, the Daily Mail.
I knew, like, a little bit about him, but it's like, you know, you read the headlines and you're like, okay, well, that's some local politics, you know? Like, that doesn't apply to me.
That's a great way of describing it. I just saw this morning a photo of Liam and Hugh Grant at the same table circa 1998 when he was still dating Elizabeth Hurley.
If I could just go back in time.
And I, you know, you more so than me, but I felt like I understood that access of celebrity in the UK. And Robbie Williams was just on the outside.
Yeah.
You know, he was the Karen Bass to the Gavin Newsom conversation that we're having.
I think you're confusing it. I think you understand that access of fame in America. In the UK, they were just as famous as each other.
That's true. I just wasn't there. Totally.
Robbie Williams set like records.
I'm not disputing his level of success. I think it's all in the context of an American movie podcast, basically, and this movie being distributed by Paramount. Like, this isn't an independent film with a small budget.
I mean, I kept thinking about Mamma Mia in this, which, you know, was... Have you still not seen Mamma Mia?
No, I haven't seen it either. I'm sorry.
Really? I don't want to spoil it for you, but like Meryl Streep just like screams "The winner takes it all" at Pierce Brosnan, like in Grease.
Okay,
it's. Gorgeous. I mean, it's worth seeing.
A secret thing about me is I hate musicals.
Well, I mean, I kind of do sometimes too, but that's okay. But this is more.
That's more your exception on the modern musicals. You like classic musicals.
That's true. Yeah, but like I do like classic musicals. Do you like ABBA?
Yeah, I mean, just as much as the next Red Blooded.
Sure, right. So I mean, it's just that,
just enjoyable.
Yeah.
Okay. And I love Meryl Streep.
Why did it remind you of Mamma Mia?
Because Mamma Mia, like, I mean, it did well here, but for a long time, it was like the most successful movie in the UK, like ever. it made $465 million internationally to like 100 here. And like, I think all of that was Brits being like, yo, let's go see Mamma Mia again.
In theory, Sweden as well.
And European, just all
Yeah.
Europe.
Yeah, but it was like a huge
UK
outside success
Yeah.
in the UK. So I was like, oh, maybe they think that this is, that they can Mamma Mia this. But I don't know why you would, as an American movie studio, why you would invest so much in its American release.
The business of it, I don't understand. That's a real
We could talk about that briefly. I mean, Matt Bellany had this in his newsletter a couple of weeks ago, which I thought was interesting, which was that Michael Gracie agreed to the deal with Paramount to distribute this movie at a certain number, which I think was $25 million, because Paramount wanted him to make another movie that is reportedly more commercial, according to Matt.
So he was
called
like wheeling it.
Nevermore.
He was wheeling and dealing.
Yes. So
Maybe
this was
he
part
loves
of-
Robbie Williams.
And I'm sure he does. Michael Gracie's Australian, but he's clearly
sure.
very tapped into the material here.
It's the Queensland. Is it not the?
But that
Crown.
movie, Nevermore, feels like it is going to be the end result of the Better Man thing happening. Or maybe the movie doesn't happen because of the Better Man performance.
Yeah.
For the record, Better Man has not been a big hit in the United Kingdom
No, it's
either.
not.
It has not performed that well in Robbie Williams'
Do you think
home
it's
country.
the chimpanzee?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a hard sell. I wonder if this, I don't know what level of celebrity Robbie Williams has right now, but I wonder if it was 10 years ago, if it actually would have done better when he was a little bit closer to the apex of his success.
Right, but you couldn't do that then.
That technology?
No, you just couldn't. You can't reflect on your life.
Oh, he would have been too
1
young, you
minute
think?
later.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Did you see? He made it also a docu-series.
I did not see that.
That came out last year.
Did you watch that?
I watched half of it.
Okay.
It's also quite. It leaves out some of this. Again, I only watched half of it. That's really more family stuff in this. But it's also like he's so likable. Like he's so self-aware. That's the other thing. It's
Yes.
like the other music biopics. I'm like, you're so not self-aware.
There's a fine line between self-aware, postmodern entertainer and smug guy.
I think he's both.
As someone who literally is operating in that space at times,
So you are an entertainer.
well, maybe I am. I actually I feel connected to Robbie Williams in some ways in that respect, but I don't think the kind of music that he makes, which is explained to us very well in the movie, which is like his dad is obsessed with Sinatra and Tony
Right.
Bennett and these kind of classical
Yeah.
American crooners. When you listen to Robbie Williams, basically putting like a syncopated drum machine behind an attempt to sound like Frank Sinatra with a British accent.
Do you know who played drums on Angels?
Who played drums on it?
Chris Sherrick from The Laws.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. There you go.
Good note. Real bandsplain moment there.
It's a real drummer.
It's just an odd kind of music. He doesn't have a lot of contemporaries. Like there's Michael Bublé and then I guess Harry Connick Jr. and a handful of people in the tradition of crooning, but like that's not really a pop style that works in America, and certainly not one when you're like also it's produced by it's influenced by Massive Attack or whatever. So I think that's part of the issue here.
Yeah,
is that whatever Robbie Williams makes, it never really fit in our collective heads in America, and so that is just a gap that I also would have a harder time getting over watching a 2-hour movie about a guy who makes music like this. Honestly, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Of course.
Can I say one thing about Liam Gallagher?
Of course. It's a safe space for Liam fans, as you know.
I don't know if I said this to you, but one thing I was blown away by, we both recently watched, what's the terrible creation movie we watched? It's called Creation Stories.
Creation Stories? Sure, yeah.
Spoiler, we will be podcasting about it eventually. There's also a actor playing Liam Gallagher in that movie. And this is, I think, okay, do you guys not agree that almost always when an actor plays a real person, the actor is always hotter?
Yeah.
It's pretty
typically
99%.
It's a good rule of
they
thumb.
round up. Yeah.
They have not been able to get an actor hotter. Like every time I'm like, Liam Gallagher is 10 times hotter than this person. Why couldn't you? He's so gorgeous that they actually can't do that for him. And I find that amazing.
Also the Oasis casting in this film took me out of the movie. I would agree
not
with you.
Bad.
I mean, and it was a commentary on Noel that I was like, okay, I see what you think of Noel Gallagher, Robbie Williams.
They were so mean to him
in
the press.
Yeah.
And like, I like it. There was some stuff you had to kind of know for it to hit, and there's a lot of it I didn't. But like, I don't know if you guys remember the part where he's like eating chips a bunch after he like breaks up with Nicole Appleton, goes back home, and he's like horking down chips because he got really fat.
Oh.
When he was hanging out with Oasis, he got really fat. And I think they were like trying to nod at that, but they didn't want to like, it was hard to make the monkey fat, I guess. But I was like, he did get fat. And the fat suit, they did that, but that part was really good.
Can I ask something? I don't remember. When you're saying chips, are you saying...
Sorry, crisps.
Okay.
Crisps.
I did, well,
sorry.
you
In
know,
the parlance of
potato
the UK,
chips,
crisps.
not
Yeah.
French fries.
The salt and vinegar, the lick. I cried
Oh,
so
right.
much.
The lick, yeah.
In this
So,
film.
Want You
Didn't cry.
Back, that never made its way to you, either of you guys, the Take That song?
I don't...
Want You
I
Back
think
for
Want
Good?
You-
Want You Back, Want You Back, oh, Want You Back for Good. You
It
know?
made it to you? How?
I'm just
Yeah.
we're the same age. I'm surprised it didn't. Maybe it just wasn't playing on MTV Asia. I mean, I'm pretty sure
Was
I
it a
heard that.
TRL
That was
situation?
prior
I
to
mean,
me
Pre
listen,
moving.
TRL.
Yeah.
It's pre-
Right, so that's the thing.
Yeah,
you
but
know,
I was
and that's where
watching
like
MTV.
the like even the several
They
years
did
make
not put that on MTV.
Where else would I have heard that song? Maybe Z100. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it might have been the radio.
Maybe the radio. I honestly think it was on MTV. I could be wrong about that.
I did.
It was not on 120 Minutes. I
I
assure
did
you.
see this film with a Scottish person,
Mm-hmm.
and she was obviously loved it, but she also was like, "This was Harry Styles. Like, I can't express
Right.
to you."
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that she was trying to explain to her daughter, who's
Yes,
14, who
that
was like,
makes
"I don't."
complete sense.
She was just like, "I don't understand what." Like a 15-year-old girl watching that was so amazing, but she actually liked it. But I was, to her credit, but I was like, "Wow, watching her with no context."
Mm-hmm.
Who is Oasis? Like the
Yeah.
whole,
Yeah.
She enjoyed it.
But and the same in terms of the construction of the band too, and I thought some of that was interesting with Damian Harriman as the the Svengali who brings the group together. That's like a very familiar American trope with the Luke
Sure.
Perlmans of the world who do
Yeah.
that too. The other thing that's weird, you've seen Honora?
Yes.
Honora opens with this Take That song during the strip club sequence.
Oh,
that's
That
right.
This will be the greatest day. Like and
Yeah,
that
yes.
song that recurs through is also a Take That song. So
But I
take
didn't-
that at the movies is crazy.
But I didn't-
back in the Renaissance.
I wasn't like, oh, this is a Take That song.
But you
when
recognized
Honora
it.
started.
I mean, I knew it was, but
Okay,
I wasn't
well, that's
like,
cool.
I'm going to Take That super
Yeah,
fan.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not. I couldn't name 3 Take That songs, but
No.
it's unusual that Take That would have such
It's
a
true.
strong presence here in our culture. This movie made $1 million domestically.
Yeah, it's not what you want.
It's $1 million
Yeah.
on 1,200 screens. It's cost $110 million. I think it made like 12 or 13 in the UK. So
I was
That's
just
bad.
looking.
We're not done
Yeah.
yet.
you think it's going to bounce back after
Me
this pod?
and me and Bobby Wagner are on, and Jack Sanders. We're on a campaign, babe, and we're gonna turn the folks around. We're film influencers.
So Bobby and Jack, both huge fans of Better Man.
That's right, my guys.
Bobby, you didn't love it as much as Jack did, I don't think.
It was not like the best movie I saw of 2024, but I'd say it's better than your average movie that makes it into this episode of this podcast. That is for damn
That's
sure.
something that is actually an interesting point about this episode, which is that there are weirdly a lot of good, but not great, but good
Which you're
movies
rudely
this
calling
January.
Dumpuary.
Which we call Dumpuary. But
rude.
as I said, it's not about, we're not dumping on these movies. They were dumped into the
Right.
landfill of January
Right,
release.
right.
Where people traditionally do not go to the theater, hence the $1 million box office.
But you said it was
Exactly.
December.
It was released in limited engagement in
Oh, got
December
it.
to
for
qualify
awards.
for awards.
Yeah. So you
Oh.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just
It opened wide 2 weeks ago.
If only
here in
I
the
was on
US.
the Academy voting, we'd have a different outcome. For
One other
Better
important
Man.
Michael Gracie note for my household, which is that it has been reported that he's going to direct the live action Tangled next. So Tangled is the Rapunzel animated feature that Disney put out, 15, 20 years ago, that I remember taking my little sister Grace to, who's been a guest of this
Hi,
podcast,
Grace.
when she was like 8 or 9, and is now my daughter's favorite movie. And my daughter,
My daughter.
my
My
sister.
sister. That's
crazy.
intense. Yeah.
Well, younger sister gets
Freudian.
complicated. But Rapunzel is an obsession in my household. Tangled is a very fun and pretty creative movie for recent vintage Disney. And frankly, I'd like to see what Michael Gracie could do with it.
What's the Tangled setup? So is it just
It's
Rapunzel, or what's the
She's
twist?
locked in the tower.
No, but she's a girl boss. It's if Rapunzel was a girl
She's
boss.
got more girl
Yeah.
bossy qualities, but she's not full girl boss because she's locked in a tower.
Okay.
But
hard
How
to-
does she
by
get
the,
out?
She's the
by the
boss.
patriarchy.
Does she live-
She's
No.
locked in the tower of the
No,
patriarchy.
by Mother Gothel,
Oh.
a mother figure
Oh, it's girl
who
on
is
girl
siphoning
crime.
power
Mhm.
from Rapunzel's hair
How does
Many
does
such
she liberate
cases.
herself?
with the help of a man
Oh,
named
no.
Flynn Rider.
Okay, what's
Of a
Flynn
simp-
Rider's
a
deal?
simp.
Flynn Rider is a bandit.
He's a
Oh,
he's a
okay.
male ally. Or
He has ally qualities. In my home often my daughter will say, I'll be Rapunzel and Dad, you be Flynn. And then we'll play as Rapunzel and Flynn. Flynn, I think, is he voiced by Zachary Levi? I think he is, which is not ideal.
That's tough.
So we don't want that casting in real life. I think Mandy Moore is Rapunzel.
My old neighbor.
Oh, she is.
Yeah, a couple bangers
that's
in the
great.
soundtrack too. Anyway, Tangled, for whatever reason, it's in that middle tier of like The Princess and the Frog, and there's a bunch of movies made in the last 10 years.
And Donna Murphy is Mother Gothel, aka
She has a
instructor from Center Stage.
And
Where are you on Center Stage, the film?
I haven't seen
Okay,
it.
that's
oh
okay.
gosh.
That's all right.
Donna Murphy has an absolute showstopper on the soundtrack to Rapunzel as well, or Tangled as well. Anyway, I would like to see it. Michael Gracie direct Tangled live action. I need one good Disney live action movie before I die. So maybe that could be the one.
Can I ask a Sean Fennessey style question?
Cool. Sure. Go for it.
What are your guys' favorite music biopic and most disappointing music biopic?
Okay, we definitely did an episode about this, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't even remember what it was hooked
I mean,
to.
Listen,
You love Rocket Man because Elton John is your guy.
I do love Elton John, and Sean took some swipes at him.
I was listening.
and I
on my
think
walk.
that is disrespectful.
Elton
No,
John is
I
a king.
took some swipes at the Better Man or Never Too Late documentary, which I thought was banal.
Okay.
I think Elton John is an amazing artist.
He is a
Okay,
king.
thank
Yeah.
you. So I enjoyed Walk the Line. I've never wavered on that.
Great movie.
Yeah. So that's where I am. And as a result, I also enjoyed A Complete Unknown.
Same.
Walk the Line
I
too.
loved it.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to pod about one of the best ones.
Okay, so you're
I don't know
gonna
if you want to spoil that or not.
me and you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we can spoil it. I think it'll be pretty soon. So.
Connected to your ongoing Britpop series
Right.
on Bandsplain.
No Robbie Williams episode. Sorry, guys.
We're going to do a conversation about 24-Hour Party People, which is more of a music biopic about a label
Yeah.
and an era in England.
Yeah, like a scene almost.
scene.
Yeah.
That one's really good. I mean, there's a couple that are good. I like Control.
I hate Control.
Okay,
You
good to
know
know.
that. You know where we live.
You did mention that
Speaking
to me.
of self-serious.
It is
Should have been
very
a photo book.
self-serious.
Make a photo book, Corbijn.
We'll talk about that when we talk about 24-Hour Party People. I don't, like these movies are self-serious, but like Coal Miner's Daughter, What's Love Got to Do with It?
Yeah.
That's a good
The
one.
sort of earlier editions of this before they became so rote,
Right.
I think, but it's usually all of those movies, just like this movie, except in this case, it's a CGI chimpanzee, are built on that central performance. And if the person embodies and captures the thing that you like, the way that Joaquin does in Walk the Line,
Yeah.
or the way that Timothy
Timmy,
Chalamet does
Or
in
the
A Complete Unknown,
Val
if
Kilmer
if you
in
get
the
that-
Doors movie.
Oh my God.
but that
I
movie's
don't
not
like
very
that
good, but
movie.
Val
Oh, yeah.
Kilmer
No,
is incredible.
But it does that thing where it's like so not good that it transcends into this piece of art that is so singular and
Mhm.
wonderful
Mhm.
because it's crazy.
What about 8 Mile?
Does 8 Mile count if the person plays themselves?
Good question.
It's a good one though.
I think it counts.
It's not an Eminem story. It's he doesn't become Eminem.
Right. It's kind of fictionalized.
It's a fiction. It's loosely adapted from his life. I still think very good movie.
I loved it.
Yeah, important.
Mom spaghetti, babe. Hits hard still. I like Amadeus. Not
Yeah,
Different version of music biopic, but it is.
Yeah,
that's a good
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
other
He
like
was a
Bound
mu-
for
he was a
Glory,
musician.
right? Like that's a good one.
Yeah.
Gary Busey, Buddy Holly story.
Pretty good.
That's
Gary Busey's
really
very good in it.
good.
Yeah.
I like Love and Mercy.
Yeah, that's
The
good. The Brian
Brian
Wilson.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh,
one.
it's nice. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one. That one, and on that one also kind of breaks
exactly.
the mold in terms of the way the story is told. La Bamba, that's a good one.
Oh, Mom was great.
There's been some. I think
Sid
most
and
of the
Nancy,
best ones.
but
Sid and Nancy's
fab.
great. Yeah, we're naming a lot of movies from the 80s and 90s.
It is
Like it's
tough,
hard to find recent stuff. What about Behind the Candelabra?
I didn't see it. Liberace.
Yeah, Liberace. That's a great movie. No, on the Soderbergh episode, you're dissing.
I like it, but it's just
You love
not
Elton
my...
John, but you don't love Liberace. Oh,
No,
that's
no. I
interesting.
just that it was good.
Okay.
I think it's over indexed on the Soderbergh.
Worst one, Last Days. I'll say it for me personally. Most disappointing for me. I almost walked out of the theater. And I love Mr. Vincent, but what are we
you seen
doing?
that one? The kind of
Kurt-
quasi
The
Kurt
fake
Cobain.
Kurt Cobain one.
No.
Kind of similar to the 8 Mile thing, except not portrayed by Cobain, obviously. I don't love it. Last Days.
There's like what felt like a 12-minute scene of him like on heroin making mac and cheese, and I was like,
He does look like Kurt.
he does great casting.
Yeah.
It's not the best movie.
I'll tell you what I don't like is Elvis.
Didn't see it. Not interested.
I mean, I would agree, though Austin Butler is very good in it. So that's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, Back to Black is the most recent. Like, I was so offended.
That one's a bummer.
And the way that I still can't believe.
Bunch of BAFTA noms for that movie. Did you see?
mean, listen, you can't.
Those were for Amy Winehouse, not for that movie. I didn't see it, but
Marissa Abella will be back in Black
Yeah.
Bag. Very
she's
excited
the
about
hot girl from Industry.
Yes.
that. Among many hot
Love
girls,
her.
but yeah.
Yes.
Well, one
Yeah.
of the hot girls,
Yeah.
but like she is
She's the leading
a
hot girl.
from
Yes.
Industry.
Mhm.
Yeah, love her.
It's just not a great. It often produces exciting performances and also often produces bad movies.
It's just like
Better is not a bad movie.
but they want it because they make money at the box office. Not just
'Cause
Sean
it's
Fennessey, but
Fun to watch all the people recreate moments that you weren't
Yeah.
there for. Like, listen, the Aretha Franklin biopic was really bad when they start writing Respect or
Mhm.
arranging Respect in the studio. I was like, it's Respect,
yeah, you
Yeah.
get
you know?
You know what's an interesting example of this that is now 10 years old, which is crazy to think about, is Get On Up, the James Brown movie.
Oh yeah,
Which I think
haven't
is
seen it, but I heard
kind
it
of a
was good.
mess of a movie, but has this wild Chadwick Boseman performance in it and is worth it just for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Should we pivot away from Better Man? Anything else you want to say about it?
No, I loved it. Go see it in the theaters. Let's respect Robert Williams.
Okay. Jack Sanders said before we started recording, better than A Complete Unknown.
I-
Better Man.
I
You
honest-
agree.
I loved A Complete Unknown. I know that's not a
Mm-hmm.
popularly held. I also argued with my Scottish friend who's like the biggest Bob Dylan fan. Shout out Chloe. I was like, I think you're mistaking what this is. Like, I think you need to understand that this is a fun time at the movies and not a piece of art. Like, and if you go into it that way, it's so fun.
A Complete Unknown.
A Complete Unknown.
Yeah, no, yeah, of course.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
it's silly,
I don't
it's
have a
fun.
lot bad to say about
Did
A Complete
Timothy
Unknown.
Chalamet learn guitar and how to sing and everyone's impressed by that? Yeah, so did all my ex-boyfriends. Cool. They're not amazing and deserving of,
Their own biopics?
Many
Yeah.
people learn how to play guitar and sing. It's
How
not-
many of them have won the Best Actor Oscar?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yes.
Not very
Just
many.
Step up.
All right, let's pivot. Another movie. Another example, I think, of a good movie that is sort of dumped, but is also maybe just smart programming
Yeah.
from a studio's perspective. That's One of Them Days, which came out last Friday, the 17th, which is directed by Lawrence Lamont, written by Cyrita Singleton, who was the showrunner on the last season of Rap Shit on Max. Produced by Issa Rae, notably, who created Rap Shit, and starring Keke Palmer, SZA, Maude Apatow,
Mhm.
and Cat Williams, among many others. This is a movie that feels like it was teleported in from 1998.
100%.
In the best way
Best
possible.
Yeah,
totally.
it's great.
Extremely fun. I've seen a couple of comparisons to movies like Friday. I've seen Greg Araki's Smiley Face as a comparison
good
point.
one.
I think a lot of like Bill Murray buddy comedies from the 80s
Yeah.
you can see.
Yeah.
You can see a lot of the like Romeo and Michelle sprung to mind while watching
Totally.
this. Obviously Girls Trip is an influence on the
Yeah,
movie.
Bridesmaids.
It's about two friends who are roommates who are late on their rent and need to make money all across one day. That's basically the whole plot of the
Yeah.
story. Keke and
It's-
SZA are the friends.
It's like the plot of Friday, basically, with like
Very
two
similar.
tweaks or whatever.
Yes, we got to get money, otherwise we're gonna get kicked
gonna
out of our place or
Or
killed, by a
this
gangster.
large gangster. Yeah.
And I don't know how deep a conversation this needs to be. This movie's got super funny set pieces, great cameos. The jokes are good.
Yeah.
We have mentioned like when will Keke Palmer be like elevated into a place where that she deserves to be in. This is like a perfect use of her talents.
Okay, can I say one little thing about that?
Sure.
I love Keke Palmer. I did love this movie, but I was a little bit like, oh man, I feel like we almost lose something when she's the straight man.
Right.
Interesting.
Because she's so
She can be so funny.
She's so funny when she's like bigger
right.
and more wacky. And I'm not saying she doesn't deserve, she's first gorgeous. She can totally play the main, person. But I was a little bit like, oh, like this did handicap a little bit of like what she's capable of on the other side.
right.
It's an interesting point because she gets moments where that jumps out in
Yeah.
the movie, especially when SZA is not on screen and
Totally.
it's
Yeah,
more
yeah.
trained on Keke. But that's actually like it's an art. It's an art like Bill Murray and Chevy Chase and all those guys.
Totally. Yeah.
Even Will Ferrell to some extent, like those leading men who get to be at the center of these madcap comedies often have to be able to do both. They have to be the relatable everyman, and they also
Right.
have to have
Right.
the slapsticky big performance style.
Yeah.
It's a test of a true kind of
Yeah,
movie stardom.
Totally. And she
I
did great.
think she did it in
She
this
did
movie.
great.
She also has great chemistry with SZA.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. And SZA was SZA,
I mean,
surprisingly great.
SZA was hilarious, but it is also, she is playing off of Keke Palmer. So
Totally.
like Keke Palmer has the ability to like ground it and
Yeah.
make it
Agreed.
make them work. Just like really funny.
Did
I
you
laughed a
know
lot of it.
SZA was going to be an actor? I don't
No.
think. Is this
No.
her debut?
Yes, it is.
She did a
Kind of amazingly
phenomenal
good.
for her first one.
Really, 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 really
Yeah.
funny. Her hot ones or their hot ones. They did like a 3-person
with
hot
Issa
ones
Rae.
with Issa Rae. Oh my god, it is genuinely really, really funny.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, no, she was very good. Like all the bits are good, you know, like the biscuit stealing and the payday loans lady who I just want to shout out. Her name is Keila Monterosa Meja, and she is incredibly funny.
She stole the show.
She
I believe.
really, really
Yeah.
did.
She was extremely funny in the last 2 seasons of Curb Your Enthusiasm. If you
Oh, she
didn't
was
see
in-
those,
okay.
she has a great part in the second to last season of Curb Your
But like
Enthusiasm.
every character and bit that shows up, and every time like another obstacle gets thrown at them because that's the structure of the movie. Like they all work. They're
Yes.
all very, which is rare. So I was quite amused.
The
by it.
heed was not taken. Took me out. I love Cat Williams.
I do too. His part in particular,
It's really funny.
He's obviously like has had a amazing comedy career tinged with a certain kind of straight talk social commentary.
Yeah.
It's funny when he gets to do basically his act inside of a movie. This happens from
Right.
time to time. It
Mhm.
happened on Atlanta when he had that guest spot in Atlanta. But he's kind of just doing a Cat Williams routine about why you should never do a payday loan.
Right.
And it's really great,
Right.
really funny.
And he's like, I feel like, isn't there like some like archetypal story trope of like the shepherd or the goddess? Isn't it
Yes.
the goddess? I know my brother's obsessed with those ways you structure stories and how a person comes in.
Blessing in the Northman.
He calls it the goddess. Yeah.
Attempting to get to Valhalla
Cat
with the
Williams
person who
was the
guides you along.
goddess.
In a way.
Yeah, he popped up
Yeah.
at every corner
Exactly,
to like
yes,
guide
to bless-
them.
yeah.
And like,
absolutely.
if you, this is a very grand statement, but there is a kind of Odyssey-like approach to this. Like
100%.
Lil
Yeah.
Rel Howery is like one of
It's
the
a
tricksters.
hero's journey.
it is a hero's
man.
journey, truly.
Also a beautiful LA thing. I mean, I think you're from here. Like for me, I was like, this is all of it is so from that Norms. I've been to so many times.
Oh, La Cienega, that's the best. I
Yeah.
love that, Norms. It is a very LA movie, and it is just a very nostalgic kind of comedy that you could reliably get 2 or 3 or 4 of these in theaters every year. I think I read that this is the first all-black female comedy made by a studio since Girls Trip, which sounds insane because Girls Trip was such a breakout.
Yeah.
But this movie did what basically every movie like it does every time, which is it sort of overperforms the
Yeah.
projections at the box office because there's obviously black audiences that want to go out, show out for these movies. I saw it at the Regal LA Live on Wednesday night, sold out at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday.
That's fun.
And I like, people want movies like this.
Totally. They're
you know?
great. They're fun. Okay, can I just say something that your soul is going to leave your body? You neglected to warn me that it ends with their house burning down.
I don't think I knew when I asked you to do it.
Just a little too soon, John.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I apologize about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I was like, not this.
You're gonna have a lot of
it all-
traumatic
does it-
experiences at
yeah.
the cinema because of
It's
this
fine. It actually
incident.
just made me laugh. I was like, oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah,
Can I say one other thing that was the one part I couldn't suspend my disbelief for?
sure.
That art is bad, babe.
SZA's characters are.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, this is, okay, wait,
Sure.
buy $650.
Would that be the first time that bad art became popular?
Sure. Yes,
Mhm.
fair.
We just
fair.
talked about Robbie Williams, you know.
Right.
Oh my
Oh.
God. The
Just a- just a-
disrespect.
just a joke.
Angels is a sensation.
Okay, all right.
It's a hit.
On our Robbie Williams, you're going to be doing great. You're going to be lauded for your respect
Making
for
a lot
Angels.
of appearances on various subreddits, just so you know.
You have been?
Yes, I sent you the one from the big picture where someone was like, Yasi Salek's house burned down. Unhappy face.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
First
nice.
heard of her on the Big Pick episode
Oh.
about Hot Frosty. She was hilarious. And I was like, thank you.
You got to be careful receiving feedback from Reddit and
someone sent
valorizing
that.
it.
to me.
Speaking of the Hot Frosty episode, my neighbors also came and they were like, "Hey, Yasi was very funny on the Hot Frosty." Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Gina and RS, they're listening. They're fans.
Hi, guys. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
So it's not just Reddit, you know.
thank you for my opportunity
Support
to
for
shine.
Yasi and Hot Frosty is everywhere.
This is what happens when you turn your life over to cinema, though. You know, you find new voices and new people.
I was there. You know, you saw my New Year's resolution. I was
Yeah.
hot on Letterboxd. I was averaging a film a day, and then we had some personal tragedy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're back now.
Okay, so you're back to the cinema tonight?
Maybe not tonight.
Okay,
but-
so the other movies that we're talking about in this episode, I want to know which of the movies you will go see.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. I love this.
Mhm.
So after you depart, Amanda and I will talk about Back in Action, which is on Netflix.
Which is what?
It stars Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx.
Okay.
It's the #1 movie on Netflix as we're recording.
I love her wine.
Interesting.
Oh, so you're an
Drink
Aveline person?
Yeah.
Yes, because it is very healthy.
Well, is it healthy or is that just the
Well,
marketing?
I think
Yeah, no. I
Both.
mean, it's true. We talked a lot about this.
I'm a health influencer, as you guys know also.
Yeah.
Bobby knows. No, I just anecdotally, R of one, as they say, I
Right.
feel better when I drink that.
Okay.
That's a Huberman.
And it's organic. My initial understanding of it was that it's sugar free, which, as Sean pointed out, is not possible for alcohol.
I don't think it's sugar free,
Yeah.
but I do think it has like less tannins. Don't quote me on this. Aveline wine is great. There's 3 flavors. It's like
Sure.
red, white, and rosé. So yeah, I'll see it. I actually really like Cameron
I
Diaz.
think we did it as a part of our taste test.
I believe we did.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Celebrity
liking it
product.
very
Yeah,
much.
and it's
Was it a
co-owned with.
rosé or white? It was a rosé.
They have both.
They have both.
They have both.
Well,
Okay.
we-
I just
but
mean
we
what
did it
tried.
Arguably way too late in the process to really assess
to
its
understand.
To assess
fun.
it. No,
Yeah,
but
we had
so,
assaulted our tongues
so
by then.
we
already
had
had the
like a
Snoop
nice
Dogg one,
time,
which is
and then
so bad.
it's co-owned by Catherine Power, who founded Merit, the makeup
Yes,
brand,
sure.
and that's how my love affair. Well, no, I already liked Merit, but then Vanessa at Merit was listening and sent me stuff. So send some
It's a
stuff
good-
to Yasi Merit.
I
if
did
you're listening.
this all my makeup.
Yeah.
If any makeup brands are listening, skincare, I'm open to
I'm actually
packages. I have a PO box. Yeah, I'll see that one. What, I can't be a burnt down house influencer?
Yeah, actually, she really
Absolutely
does.
can. I hope many people send you things.
As
Honestly,
I've said,
expensive
as I
also.
told
I get
you,
it.
Sean, on one hand, did I lose all of my personal belongings that I loved and treasured for 30 years? Yes. On the other hand, I love attention. Conflicting.
real devil's
Right.
bargain here
Real
for you.
conflicting
Yeah.
feelings.
I think you'd rather have your belongings.
Yeah, but you
got
gotta look at the bright side.
Well, let's try to
Can
let's try to send Yasi
Let's
as
get
much shit as possible.
You want some wine too?
yes.
Which
Cammy,
flavor
are you
do you want?
listening?
Which flavor?
Yeah.
What
Of
do you
the
mean
red,
by-
white, or rosé
Is that how
variety?
it's described?
Yeah, I mean that's
That's
I'm
what
a
you say
white
when you show
girl.
up to Napa.
Me and Amanda are sommeliers. I don't know if you know that
Yeah.
about us.
You're certainly drinkers.
Well,
Wow, the shade. Your
a drinker.
Catholic
Yeah.
jumped out
Nothing-
right there.
no, I'm just IDing,
Okay.
spotting my
Listen.
own in the wild.
Okay.
Any closing thoughts?
What did you want to ask me more movies?
Yeah. Presence, the ghost story that Steven Soderbergh is directing.
You know that I unfortunately don't. It's not that I don't like them. I'm a weak person who cannot handle horror movies, especially
it's
ones
not really
with-
horror.
It's not.
It's
But
like
it's like obvious.
because I'm the same
Oh,
way.
you saw it.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
seems
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's riddled with jump scares, which is the one thing I.
No,
It's not.
it's not.
It's kind of the
actually.
opposite.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll definitely because you know
You're
my
kind of
girl,
like,
more of a
okay, I get it.
meditation.
my
Yeah.
girl Julia Fox is in it, and we stand
Yeah.
Julia Fox.
Amusing
on this
casting,
program.
yeah.
Yes, she's very funny.
So okay, I'll see that,
What about
and I love Lucy Liu.
Wolfman?
That
Speaking of your
is-
horror concern.
That's going to be a no from me,
Okay.
dog.
I also
yeah.
skipped that one.
Yeah.
No
Flight
Wolfman.
Risk, directed by Mel Gibson, starring Mark Wahlberg. I think it's like
Takes place entirely on a 3-seater plane.
Okay.
it's like you know how Mark Wahlberg was like, if I'd been on the 9/11 plane, I
hadn't
would
even
have
thought about this.
saved it. Yeah, I would have
Oh my
saved it, which is
God.
like a real Mark Wahlberg quote. They turned that into a 3-seater plane movie.
It's like a MAGA.
He said not
three-seater.
only
But-
would he have saved it, he said it wouldn't have gone down like that. That is the
Right.
quote.
Great. Incredible that you had that at your fingertips, Bob. Love it.
I
God-
think about it, no joke, every day of my fucking sad life.
God grant me 10% of the self confidence of Mark
Sure.
Wahlberg.
It's
It's done
Yeah.
wonders for his life.
Yeah.
Now he just wakes up at 2 a.m. to work out. Do you know about that
play
as well?
golf.
You know
Oh,
about his
yeah.
schedules?
Oh,
yeah.
sure.
Is
That's
that
when
part
you're-
of your health plan?
No, you know what? we don't have to get into it, but I had a dalliance with procuring some black market peptides from a sinister gay man in West Hollywood prior to the house burning down that really set me back on the right path of like, you need to find Jesus and stop being so insane.
Okay, with like the peptides.
You're still insane. Telling that story here is truly crazy.
No, I think
It's not illegal.
No, I didn't say that.
But then I was like, maybe just be normal a little bit. I mean, it can never be totally normal, but
yeah.
I'm not counting my protein grams anymore. If that's if that says anything.
That's I'm not either. I was trying. But
Yeah,
Then,
that's-
yeah.
But we need to be free from the shackles of
I had
cottage
to throw
cheese.
out all
You
the
know,
Greek yogurt.
I can't take it anymore. I'm tired. We only have so much life left.
And now it's fiber. So
It's just like I'm so tired. Fine, I'm gonna breathe in the toxic air and I'm gonna have microplastics, and that's fine. I used to do bags of drugs that I found in trailers backstage at Coachella. I'm doing great.
This has been a revelatory appearance by you.
My dad doesn't listen to this show. Okay, I'm not going to see that movie.
Okay, that's the whole list.
Great.
Yasi, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having
Listen
me.
to
I had such a
Bandsplain.
wonderful
Yeah.
time.
If
Got
you're
to finally pod with
I
Amanda,
know it's
who I'm
great,
a
but
huge fan
you'll
of.
be back soon, right?
Won't be
'Cause
the
you're
last
doing,
time.
Yeah, Bridget Jones.
yes, Bridget Jones.
Yeah, you're on the spreadsheet. Do you know that? Do you have access to the spreadsheet?
No, and
Okay,
I don't.
Well, you're on it.
I
so.
will not be granting you
I
access
don't
to
need
the
access
spreadsheet.
to your spreadsheet.
Are you a Paddington person?
Oh my God, babe. Am I
Okay, well, that episode is
Wow.
that's a Paddington
Okay.
and Bridget Jones episode.
Wow. Yeah.
I
that's-
love Paddington. Do you know how much Paddington shit I bought when I went to the UK? It was like my suitcase was full of Paddington shit.
Did you know that there was a recent Gap Paddington collaboration? If you're looking, I don't know whether they made adult sizes. It's mostly for kids.
I can fit into a kid small.
Yeah, it's very big
Not to brag.
in my house
Make
with
kids
the
large.
children. So,
Yeah.
but it's a good stuff. They made a duffel coat, a Paddington duffel coat. It's honestly a good coat. You should check out the
I
sizes.
want a Paddington Gap.
Sounds like you're headed to the Gap immediately after this recording.
Is it currently in stores?
It was for December, so maybe now it's on sale. Also,
Hell
if
yeah.
anyone at Gap is listening, Yasi would love some Paddington for Gap
Paddington
materials.
the bear is
Yeah.
listening. I would love a hug.
Thanks, Yasi.
Thank you so much, guys.
Okay, we're back. It's just me and you.
Mm-hmm.
How you feeling?
Great.
Do you feel like you're back in action? You know, you've got 2 children in your home. You know, you're a lady in the
I'm
world.
pleased to announce that Back in Action is actually an autobiographical film of what happened when I tried to institute Monday night movies with my 3-year-old son.
Not
Yeah.
going well.
No,
No, it's too bad. I thought of you while watching this new film, which is
that's an insult. I thought this sucked.
it's very bad.
Yeah.
So this movie is directed by Seth Gordon, who's made some kind of funny movies in the past, Horrible Bosses.
Sure.
It's about 2 CIA spies who retire,
Mm-hmm.
played by Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx. They also happen to be married.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get sucked back into the world of espionage and thrills and MacGuffins. And also, it's a funny comedy with lots of hand-to-hand combat.
I thought of you because it's also about raising a teenage daughter. And,
I don't have a teenage daughter.
Well, soon you will.
One day I shall.
Yeah. And the little boy is just like, hey, look at my cool wearable technology. You know, he's not a problem. But Cameron Diaz is working through a lot with her mother,
Yes.
who is played by a British Glenn Close. And
Glenn Close affecting a British
Sure.
accent, not a
and-
British
yes,
woman
a
who is
version of
Glenn Close.
That's correct. And then Cameron Diaz is also trying to work through her relationship with her teen daughter.
Here are some notes I've made about this film. I'd like to share them with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
This is a Mr. and Mrs. Smith meets Family Switch action comedy, aka Red Notice for Moms.
I object to this slander against moms.
Okay.
Here, okay? Like I too am a mom. Not all moms.
Not all moms, unless you're Cameron Diaz in this film.
Not all moms.
This is a subgenre that I am calling Wahlbergalia.
Okay, yeah.
It's not a flower. It's not a city in Luxembourg. It's a breezy, semi-competent, weightless form of wallpaper movie.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with it, but the better the talent associated with a movie like this, the more enervating this movie can be. Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx are way too good for this movie.
Unfortunately, they're not good in it.
I mean, they're not anything in it. They're not really asked to do anything other than just like be charming the way they would be charming in a commercial for vodka. That's really what it kind of feels
but
like they're doing.
even broader than vodka because it's family. Like it's family and it's supposed to be about
A commercial
like, I love
for
my
potato
mom.
chips,
Okay,
you know?
Sure. Yes.
It is,
exactly.
it is a mass consumption
but
product.
they have like a little bit of that thing that they're reading lines as if they just need to get to the end of them as fast as possible, which is what I associate with like, it's how I would
Are you
act.
sure you weren't watching it
you
at
know?
1.5x on Netflix?
No, I wasn't. Can I tell you something? I watched this while taking a bath. And
Just a chilling visual.
no one asked you to visualize it, okay?
I'm sorry, my mind is so strong.
And so I would say like the 30 minutes where I was just like in the bath really engaged.
Not to,
Yeah,
I'm really
yeah,
reluctant to explore this more
Yeah.
deeply, but like laptop perched on the
Uh,
bath?
iPad in the shelves
Okay.
that we had built like directly on one side of the bath.
There's, that very famous image. I don't know if you've ever seen it from A Nightmare on Elm Street where Heather Langenkamp is taking a bath and she sees Freddy Krueger's hand emerge from the bathtub.
Right.
I picture that, but the iPad appearing from the water, screening back in action for you.
No, it was set on the lowest little shelf.
Okay.
And I watched about 30 minutes when they go to London. And I had started it earlier and then got in the bath. And that part I was really locked in.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was time to get out of the bath and, kind of do my nighttime routine. So I just kept it going on the shelf. So I wouldn't say that I was like deeply engaged, but I do think I was watching it the way that most people watch a Netflix film, which is like while doing other stuff.
This is one of the best, most recent examples of like the wheat and the chaff of real movie and Netflix movie.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people here who've worked on Hollywood movies, big productions. Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx are huge stars. I mean, they are really incredibly
and Cameron
famous.
Diaz hasn't been making movies for almost 15 years.
That's where I'm going
so
with this.
This is also her back in action. This is about her.
Very much. It's framed around her going back into action, not just the character. It's been 11 years since she was in a movie role.
Uh-huh.
She took a long break, I guess, to get married, start her wine business. She has a family?
She has a family. And so she's been spending time with them.
This movie comes 1 year after Argyle. And when we talked about Argyle, we talked about wink action. There's something going on with this subgenre.
Right.
Where it's like mutating in real time. This movie is now part of this ongoing thing that is happening where big movie stars in the aftermath of John Wick, and maybe we should have called it Wick wink action, are now participating in these movies. And this movie has a ton of it where you've got either like famous movie stars or their stunt doubles in lots of hand-to-hand combat.
Yes. And it's really their stunt doubles because the cuts and the wigs are like very obvious.
Very obvious in this movie.
Yeah.
But then now later this year, we've got Love Hurts,
Mm-hmm.
the Kiwi Kwan, Ariana DeBose movie that feels very similar, though Kiwi Kwan doesn't use as stunt double as often as many of these other actors. Nobody 2 is coming out with Bob Odenkirk. And then this Jack Quaid movie, Novocaine. And, there's a long lineage of this stuff, Atomic Blonde and the Wick movies and the Leach and Stahelski movies, but now they've kind of found it into this like very silly, serious style of action movie. And this is a really low form of it. And it being the movie where Cameron Diaz comes back is just kind of strange because she had a very up and down movie career, but she was in a part of a lot of great movies.
Yes, and very funny.
A great comedian. And that's something I want to ask you about is like her career and kind of where she fits in because she's been like multiple Golden Globe nominee. She's been in some very well.
Okay, J-Lo.
Well, but hard to forget, like she was nominated for Vanilla Sky.
Yeah.
I think she was nominated for Being John Malkovich. Like she was in good movies.
Yes, she was.
And her career took like a more broad comedy direction over the last 10 years when she started doing like Bad Teacher and Sex Tape and she was in the Annie musical. And then that's when she stepped away. But through the first 15 years of her career, she was a staple figure. And I started writing down like generationally what she was like lineage-wise, what she was a part of. And I was like, is it Carole Lombard or Claudette Colbert? Is it Jane Fonda or is it Diane Keaton? Is it Kathleen Turner or is it Meg Ryan? Like she was always kind of straddling the line between sex pot, daffy woman, like independent minded, I don't need a man type figures.
Right.
And, she, to her credit, like she really kind of bounced around between all those kinds of identities. And then now she's just in like this
she's like a mom. Yeah.
It's just like she looks great. She looks beautiful. Jamie Foxx too. He's like 57 years old. He looks like he's 30.
They look great. And I will say like the one time I laughed was during one of those action sequences, which are just like really bad. And so obviously like cut around the two actors. And also like weirdly violent.
Very violent.
And I'm just like, what did you think that I was tuning in to watch? But anyway.
But can I pitch a theory about that?
Yeah.
That these sequences are in these movies because they want you to look up from your phone.
Sure.
So that you're like not paying attention to the dialogue and then something crazy happens.
That's when I stopped watching for the most part. I was just like checking in for the plot points, which are bad, except
points.
Well, the one surprised me because I was only paying like 20% attention.
The Kyle Chandler one.
Listen, stop spoiling shit for
telegraphed
people.
from a mile away.
I thought it was going to be Andrew Scott.
Yeah.
because
The most
know,
like if you've seen one spy movie ever, you know
Okay,
what's happening
like,
in this movie.
once again, I watched him get shot in the bath.
Uh-huh.
And then I got out.
He wasn't shot in a bath. You were in the bath
I was
when
in the bath.
he was shot in the
Yeah.
film.
And then I got out and I had to do my like red light mask.
Mhm.
So, and it's really hard to. Do you know about those?
Yeah, you're conjuring the substance right now. So
I'm not injecting anything. It's just me. Both weeks of,
okay. Did I tell you that Eileen tried to watch The Substance last night?
Oh, no.
Didn't go well.
No, she didn't like it?
No. She after 30 minutes, she said there's too much injecting going on in this movie.
Okay.
And then I said it gets a lot worse than
Yeah,
that.
no, it does.
I think she bailed.
The injections were fine, but, I lived through a lot of that. Anyway, I was doing my mask, my red light and blue light mask at once. So it's kind of like hard to see the screen, when the
So
lights,
you were doing them while the movie was on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's very respectful.
Yeah. I mean, I was like washing my face. I was brushing my teeth. I was doing all of the things.
AirPods or no? Oh, no AirPods. You don't have AirPods.
No AirPods, yeah.
Okay.
The good reminder to
We'll
help
get to
me
that, yeah.
order those. Yeah, those had some ash in them, so they're gone.
Okay.
It's fine. I had washed them already,
Okay.
so they weren't performing at the highest level. So I was surprised by the plot twist, but I tended to be like, I was like, okay, you're doing another junkie action sequence. I can look away. The only one I did watch was the one where the teen daughter is watching it, and I guess the son is too. And at one point, Cameron Diaz, and I do actually think it is Cameron Diaz who headbutts someone.
Mm-hmm.
Because they
in the club you're talking about.
No, I would have said this was like at the rest stop.
Okay.
And I do think that she's headbutting.
Mm-hmm.
And then the teenage daughter is like, Mom. And Cameron Diaz, like, while moving, is like, honey, she's fine. It wasn't that hard or something. And I thought that was funny. And I laughed. And it was just, that was like the one glimmer of like real Cameron Diaz. And then it went away. And she had to like feel anguished because her mom was Glenn Close, who was an MI6 officer. And then sent Cameron Diaz to boarding school. So then she was CIA. Why couldn't this just be American?
I think Glenn Close wanted to have some fun. That's the impression I get. Well, also, you've got
so.
Andrew Scott as the MI6
Sure.
officer. And so
like,
the way that
and I guess like London tax credits.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps. It did get us Jamie Demetriou in the movie. I don't know if
Sure.
you were familiar with him. British comic actor. His
He was very
sister,
funny.
Natasha, is in What We Do in the Shadows and is absolutely hilarious on that
Oh,
TV show.
Right.
Both of them are great. He's innocent in this movie. This movie is very bad. Glenn Close, you didn't see, I assume because you were on leave, Lee Daniels' The Deliverance, did you?
I did not.
This is a horror movie that Lee Daniels made that was released on Netflix in
Okay.
September.
It was good. You liked it?
No, it's terrible. But you know what? I shouldn't say that. It's not terrible. It's just wild and
Okay.
ridiculous. There has not quite been a horror movie like it before. But Glenn, it's a almost entirely all black cast except for Glenn Close, who is a woman in the Deep South living within a black community and affecting a black community attitude.
Yeah.
And it's funny and weird and stupid, and it's just a lot. And she's having fun right now. She's doing whatever she wants to do, knowing that she will never win an Academy Award.
You think it's never now?
Well, if you keep taking on parts like Back in
That's
Action and
true.
the Deliverance, you will not win an
And
Academy
Hillbilly
Award.
Elegy.
Yeah.
Which I haven't forgotten.
Very strange.
This is like really, really bad. I thought a little bit of Spy Kids, Bobby, while watching it.
Damn. Shots fired.
Because I mean, it's the parents were spies, and the kids, like at
Good
the
point.
end, sort of save the day. The kids aren't involved, but that's the problem. It's like it doesn't quite get to Spy Kids, but it's trying to have like the family tone, but then it's also trying to do like weird, fake, super violent stuff. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, Spy Kids has way more charm than this
Yeah,
movie
of
for
course.
sure. Yeah, it sucks.
Really bad.
This is the true Dumpuary candidate of this discussion today.
Two thumbs down.
Okay. Well, great seeing you.
Thanks so much.
Gonna bring in CR now, I think.
Okay.
How do you feel about that? You want to say anything about Presents? You've seen Presents, right?
I have. It was great. And thank you to the kind people. It's Neon, right?
Yes.
Who sent it to me like 3 weeks after Sai was born, and I did watch it. But my brain at that point, I
little
don't think I
foggy.
have like a elevated. There's a reason I'm not going to sit in on the conversation with you guys. But I liked it. I mean, you know what? I like it when Steven Soderbergh tries things, and it's a very just my guy trying things again.
It very much is. I'll talk about it with Chris now, along with Wolfman and Flight Risk. Thanks, Amanda. Let's go to CR. Chris Ryan is here, headed to the Super Bowl. Congratulations.
Thanks, man. You're always so benevolent about your praise of Philadelphia and Philadelphia sports.
Tricky Super Bowl for a lot of fans.
I understand.
Unless you're from Philadelphia or Kansas City, we say congratulations to you guys.
I think that these are two of the 4 best teams in the league. Yeah.
Agreed. But well earned,
Yeah.
no question, but not the most exciting. But I'm happy for you. I'm happy to have you here in Dumpuary. It would not be Dumpuary if you were not here on the pod with me. And we've got 3 titles to discuss in a short period of time. You got to get out of here. You got another pod to do. What are you talking about on the watch today?
We're talking about Severance, and we're talking about The Agency, and we'll probably just talk about Vic Fangio and whether or not he can legally become our fathers.
I see. In the meantime, speaking of fathers, let's start with Wolfman.
Also, you take your time, man.
Okay.
Andy can wait.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I know that's not how you really feel, but I appreciate you saying that. Wolfman is a story about fathers.
Yeah.
In many ways. This is the new film directed by Lee Winnell. This is his 3rd consecutive movie for Blumhouse now.
Upgrade, Invisible Man, and now this.
Yes, his 4th directorial feature. He's got his start as a writer working with James Wan many years ago. You may remember him from the film Saw, where he was one of the victims in that movie. Wolfman is an adaptation of Wolfman. It's one of the most legendary Universal monster movies that we have. What Winnell did with The Invisible Man, I thought was fairly ingenious. One of the last films released wide before COVID hit. That movie did pretty good business, and I think very smartly centered the lead monster into the villain role of the movie. This movie sort of attempts to do the same thing. It stars Christopher Abbott, Julia Garner, and it's a very contained, constrained, intimate horror movie. It's not done well at the box office and has not gotten good reviews, and yet you saw the film and you texted me, and what did you say?
I said I liked it. And what I think I mean is that I think I can make the case for it.
Okay.
Is this the substance for guys who care about macros?
I have a totally different read on this film, but please fire away.
I think I can make a couple of different, what this movie is about in theory arguments more than I can make an argument about why it might be an enjoyable film to watch.
Okay.
A bunch of the movies we're going to talk about today feel like leftover COVID movies that are 2-handers, 3-handers, limited sets, or very isolated sets. So this is shot in New Zealand. A couple of the other films we're going to talk about just feel very we got a room for you guys to go into after you test, and we'll shoot it and we'll fix it later. This is I think it was very much, at least the story itself feels rooted in that experience, whereas the other ones feel like they maybe suffered from, or especially one of them feels like it suffered because of that. But yeah, I just feel like this movie could be about a monster movie about killing your dad, a movie about the impossibility of connection with anyone other than blood, or a movie about blue-collar cosplay gone wrong.
The last one is a good bit. I'm not sure it's in the text. My reaction to the movie, which I don't think is very successful for a variety of reasons, is that it's a decent drama about not fucking up your kids. That one of the core ideas of the movie that opens with Abbott's character as a 10-year-old boy traversing the forests of the Pacific Northwest with his father, who is mindful of the dangers of life.
You could say that. Yes.
He's a sort of a paranoid about what could happen, and I guess the implication is that his wife has died somehow.
Yes,
in a
apparently
tragic
there
way.
was a cut scene from the movie where she has MS, I think, or ALS.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that has created a sense of isolation and paranoia in this father figure, who then hands it down to the Christopher Abbott character, through a series of phantasmagoric events. We learn that there is a lycanthropoc disease going around in this part of the Pacific Northwest. Christopher Abbott's character has to go back with his wife, Julia Garner, and their young child.
To save their marriage.
To save their marriage.
Because she loves working too much.
Yes, she's a journalist.
It's like the San Francisco Chronicle or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
she keeps getting scooped by the Times. It's an amazing scene where she just walks into the apartment. She's not using AirPods or headphones. She's on the phone. And she's like, are we just going to get scooped by the Times again?
Would you say that that's how you feel listening to competing TV pods?
No, I don't. I want everybody to succeed. And I also just think that if you just do your thing, the people will come.
You actually do believe that, and I appreciate you saying it out loud.
Do you feel that way about film pods?
I used to be so competitive, and now I'm like, we got what we do, and I feel good about it. I feel actually
there's only one Amanda, you know.
Honestly, true. That is how I feel. There's no one could possibly replicate whatever's usually happening in that chair, and God bless her for it. The problem with the movie for me ultimately is that it's not scary.
Yeah.
We can debate whether or not it's effective as a Wolfman movie, which is often like such a heavy metaphor for the sort of feral nature of masculinity and our inability to communicate. And so we turn into animals and all these things that, you can find going all the way back to the 41 Lon Chaney version of the movie, which is an excellent 70-minute classic monster movie.
Yeah.
It's been really hard to make a good werewolf movie and especially a good Wolfman movie. There was one, 15, 20 years ago that Joe Johnston directed starring Benicio del Toro.
Yes.
Which has some cool monster effects, but is more of like a chamber piece and more of a historical story, and I don't think works quite as well.
There's the Mike Nichols, Jack Nicholson one.
Wolf, of course. I think An American Werewolf in London is probably the best loved of the more recent vintage, but that's going back almost 40 years now.
I'm a big fan of Dog Soldiers. I mean, we're getting into just werewolf movies, not Wolfman movies. But
the just like normal guy turns into a Wolfman thing is hard to do. Now, this movie, the actual makeup effects are good, but I didn't like the transition.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a slow transition into the Wolfman, and it becomes much more about, I heard my friend Elric Kane said this on his podcast, that this reminded him a lot of The Fly, where Brundlefly and the Fly like very slowly starts to become a fly.
Yeah.
And Christopher Abbott very slowly becomes a Wolfman in this movie. And I just wanted to see him just be full wolfy. I wanted to see him be Teen Wolf.
Yes.
And he never does that.
There was like a moment in the beginning of the movie where so the Julia Garner character, the Christopher Abbott character, and their daughter Ginger they're on their way to his late father's farm, which he hasn't been to in decades. They get lost, and a mountain man who is also living there, who I take it to be like the kid who was like the son of their family friend and like the radio chatter, gets in the truck and all of a sudden introduces this element of like mystery because you can't quite tell if this guy's friend or foe. He's sort of, on one hand, seems to be mocking their urbane snowflake kind of tenderness, but is also like, you should be happy about that because that means you've had a good life and like you're not like made hard to the world. And that guy leaves the film quickly. And I thought that the rest of the movie there was nothing wrong with the performances. I think Abbott and Garner are two of the kind of like finer actors of their generation in a lot of ways.
They're a big reason why I was super excited.
And
about
Abbott brings a ton to the early scenes, and even you can tell it just goes for it in the transformation. He's like, I watched hours and hours and hours of animal videos to try and get like the gait down, but there was something kind of like they needed another thing in this movie. They needed something that like demanded that the two adult characters interact with or something. Like there was something missing from that element. And like you said, there was something missing from the scares. There was like two good set pieces, but they're kind of devoid of suspense.
The car and then headed onto the top of the greenhouse.
The car and the greenhouse, yeah.
That was very effective. I thought the two best sequences of the movie were the opening sequence with the sort of the hunting spy tower and the fear of kind of what was below, and then that sequence that you just described where they come across this guy who he has.
I've seen other people ask this, but so we can just talk about these openly, right? Like,
I guess so. This movie's going to be on streaming in like a week.
Yeah. Other people have mentioned this, but why, if the guy is like, you have to understand, like everything could be taken from you. His Blake's dad in the first scene is like everything can be taken away from you. Why does he have him in this incredibly dangerous remote part of Oregon?
I think he's just trying to teach him to be a survivalist. Okay. That was my impression, was that you got to see up close what you're up against.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that that's my parenting style.
Right.
But trying to avoid wolf contact wherever possible. Nevertheless, I think, the other challenge is just Julia Garner's just too young for this part. She's like, she was 28, I think, when they made this movie, and she's the daughter of an 8-year-old kid, and she's a high-powered journalist. Like, I just don't think I really bought their relationship. I didn't really buy her. She's a really, really talented actor, but she's in an interesting pivot point of her career where she's played kind of like the trickster younger woman.
Yeah.
And now she's going into full-blown.
Like, I'm in my 30s.
Yeah.
I can't have it all. Yeah.
Well, I mean, she doesn't ultimately in this movie for a variety of reasons, but I would have liked for this to have been better, especially because you and I were both we were both really enthusiastic about Upgrade, which did we see together at South by?
I don't think we saw it together, but
Okay.
we saw it at the same South by Southwest.
Okay.
I heard the next Megan is supposed to be upgradey vibes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Terminator style.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. And Invisible Man I thought was ingenious. And so this is a bit of a step down, and that's really unfortunate.
Did you notice that in this movie, Abbott's character is like all Carhartted out in the beginning, but fashionable Carhartt?
I did.
And then by the end of it, he's wearing a U.S. Marines fatigue shirt
Mhm.
and has become Wolf. Like he's gone from the you don't get this? He's gone from the you can buy this.
You're kind of in
identity.
throwing fits territory here, Shout out to throwing fits. You're just what a man's wear can tell us about the man. You're giving us some Derek Guy dye workwear.
No. I think it's interesting that this guy is an unemployed writer who's wearing all of the accoutrement of a working class, I get after it guy.
Oh, I see.
Right?
You think this was class commentary about my culture is not your costume?
But then by becoming the wolf, he actually earns his wardrobe.
Can I pitch something at you? I feel like if you could, you would take the wolf juice. If you could become a wolf man, you would do it. Is
Wouldn't
that
that have
right?
been an amazing version of this? Is guys who opt into being the wolf man?
It's kind of like getting black pilled,
Yeah.
but for feral activity.
Yeah.
Um.
Wolf pilled.
Okay. You want to move on?
Sure.
Speaking of wolves, Flight Risk.
Okay.
We saw this film together.
This movie eats absolute shit. This movie might actually be a crime against cinema.
It's very bad.
There's there's open and naked use of AI in the first.
You think that
scene.
moose was AI?
It looked like the moose or an animal from a really bad Coke Christmas commercial where they're we used AI to make this.
This was something I was saying when I was talking about the brutalist AI controversy, where I'm just this is happening in movies all the time and we just don't know because the filmmakers are not telling us. And now we're getting to a point where things are appearing in movies and you're huh.
I guess it's that's not a moose. So is it
It's CGI,
animation
but
or
who
CGI?
created
Yeah,
it? You know, was it the same artist who built Thanos, drafting this moose?
These craftsmen are listening to the big picture. It's really, I wonder if Sean and
Why am I
Chris-
catching strays
Yeah.
in this shitty Mel Gibson movie? Mel Gibson directed this movie.
And let me just say, so eats absolute shit, crime against cinema, etc.
Yeah, down the list.
Didn't move an inch during
I
the
was
entire
riveted.
film.
Yeah, I was riveted knowing it was bad.
Yeah.
But you and I are both prone to getting up to go to the bathroom during a movie. Neither of us did.
Well, you were I was you wanted candy before we start. You bought tickets. I'll buy the food. And you're you know what? I plan on getting up. I heard this isn't very good.
And I didn't.
Reader, no, you didn't.
I didn't have a single Sour Patch Kid that night. This movie stars Mark Wahlberg, Michelle Dockery, and Topher Grace.
Yep.
That was the aspect of it that had me going in hoping it was going to be good. When I saw the trailer at CinemaCon, I told you and Amanda, this is a cool idea for a movie. It's a pretty good contained, and we were still in sort of the post-COVID environment. And I was I get what this is.
Yeah.
This is a movie that was made probably in 2022, maybe even 2021. And it was because there were a lot of protocols and restrictions. So the studios were looking for scripts that could be made cheaply and in contained environments, like you said at the beginning. And this one takes place largely on a 4-seater airplane.
Yeah.
It's about a U.S. Marshal who needs to transport a witness in a mafia case,
Yeah.
essentially.
You can tell it's a mafia case because they're testifying against a guy named Moretti.
Moretti.
Yeah.
So Moretti has done bad. Topher Grace is his accountant. He's given Charles Grodin in Midnight Run, but not really.
Do you think the mob still has accountants like that? Where it's some square pencil pusher is I move money around for the mafia.
You think they've deployed AI to do their
I think that
accounting?
they've just figured out this took down Capone. Let's be a little careful.
It's a fair point. In the process of this transport from, I guess the
I think he's
wilderness
gotten out
of
to the
Alaska.
Alaskan tundra.
Yeah.
And now I don't know
And
where
they're
he
headed to
plans.
Anchorage to eventually get to Seattle to testify against Moretti in the
Yes.
case that the U.S. government has been building against him. As they are about to take off, the pilot gets on the plane. That pilot, of course, is portrayed by Mark Wahlberg. Is he a pilot? He is. Is he the pilot? He's not. He is, in fact, not just a hitman sent to kill this testifying witness, but he is an absolute sociopath
Yeah.
who is there to plunder, pillage, and destroy both of these people that are on the plane with him. This is the most committed Mark Wahlberg performance in several years. I wouldn't say it's a good Mark Wahlberg performance, but every time he talked, I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
This person is there's some of the most vile and aggressive threats made in this
Which
movie.
I didn't see in the original script. This has been discussed a little bit online, but this was a blacklist script. Jared Rosenberg, I think, wrote it. And
pretty like solidly built.
yeah, and what it lacks is the constant threats of sexual violence that Mark Wahlberg's character spouts, which is just definitely like an interesting wrinkle to throw on it. Wahlberg wears at one point a toupee under a hat, which I guess is supposed to be either this hitman's act of vanity or is
He's in a disguise.
he's in a disguise. But when he's bald, it's quite obviously a bald cap.
Yes.
Like
No, it's not. He shaved his head.
Mark Wahlberg shaved the front and back of his
Yes,
head.
I read this. Mark Wahlberg shaved his head, and it looks like a bald cap because he has an enormous head.
Yeah.
But that's just his head, and that's one of the reasons why he's a movie star.
And did he say why he did it? Or what was about the
Commitment
character?
to the part.
Okay. What part?
I guess just that this guy's an absolute crazy person, and there's some sort of false equivalency to bald people.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't really know. A really strange movie.
Yeah.
A movie that I desperately wanted to know what was going to happen, even though I knew I would be disappointed by its conclusion.
Yeah.
But the entire time was thinking over and over and over again about all of the silly decisions that the Michelle Dockery character is making, and her like unwillingness to either tase Mark Wahlberg's character to death or into submission for the entirety of the like the idea of being on a 4-seater plane with an absolute sociopath
Who's talking? Yeah.
who's taunting
Yeah.
you and letting him just hang there and figure out a way to escape is ridiculous. Michelle Dockery, interesting times for her. One of my faves, Lady Mary from Downton Abbey.
Fantastic in the film The Gentleman.
Yes, and I think she's also in a kind of a pivot point of her career.
She's done a fair amount of TV. Yeah.
She's done a lot of TV. She's done network TV in the US. I was just reading last night that she was in a Stephen Knight miniseries in the UK. I guess they don't even call it miniseries. It's a series, a 6-episode series about music in the 80s.
Yes,
last
This
year.
Town.
This Town, which
Yeah.
I never
It has
saw.
not
but
come out over here. I've tried my best.
to see it or to talk
To
about
see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason Mantzoukas and I were just talking about
Oh,
this
really?
'cause
Yeah,
he
it
was
looked really
like,
cool.
When is this town coming? I'm like, damn, dude, I don't like it's about the like two-tone ska movement in Birmingham
Yes,
in the
which
80s.
sounded really exciting. So she's obviously still doing cool stuff. She's a little saddled with some tough script situation here. Her American accent, not always the greatest in the world.
I said to you, I think after we walked out, like that had Shyamalan vibes, like the way people talked and the sort of oddness
That
of the
stilted
characters.
quality, yeah.
For people who want to see Dockery in good stuff, she's in The Gentleman. She's in Godless, which is a really incredible
Netflix
Scott
series.
Frank series, Western. Topher. I mean,
Topher Grace.
well, let's do this. When the film ended,
Mm-hmm.
there was some light applause in the theater we were in.
Yeah.
As the directed by Mel Gibson card flashed.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was in direct relation to Gibson as a filmmaker or just the satisfactory ending of the film for the theater that we were in.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, it's like I guess
maybe they were just celebrating his ambassadorship to Hollywood, which President Trump recently granted him,
Yeah.
unknowingly apparently to Mel Gibson. Did you know that he didn't know that was coming?
I didn't.
Did you hear what his response
I
to
saw
that was?
that he was like, "Daddy's home" or "Daddy's back," and he's taking the belt to like.
Here's the thing: Mel Gibson's personal history is downright disgusting.
Yeah.
He always had a good sense of humor, and his response to the news that he had been granted an ambassadorship was very funny, which was, "Does it come with a residence?" Because his house had just burned down in
right.
Malibu. That was his public statement about this.
You have to laugh. Yeah.
Mel Gibson, probably the single weirdest directorial filmography in movie history. I'm going to read to you now the films that he directed. Let's do this in order here.
Okay.
He breaks out in 1993 with The Man Without a Face, which I saw in movie theaters.
I completely forgot about the existence of this film. This was like a huge Premiere Magazine movie.
Massive movie at the time. Young Nick Stahl as a young boy who comes across a badly burned man,
Right.
who, he learns to love and teach him how to have empathy or whatever. Totally middling drama. Follows that up directly with Braveheart, one of the biggest movies of the 1990s, a Best Picture winner, a film that very quickly got etched into the history of American movies.
Yeah.
He waits a solid 9 years to follow that film up with The Passion of the Christ, the most successful independent movie ever made. An extraordinarily violent portrayal of the death of Christ. He then, a few years later, makes Apocalypto, arguably his most accomplished movie, controversial movie in some ways, still a success.
Mhm.
And then his career goes down a really dark, terrible path after he gets pulled over in Malibu. He makes a bit of a comeback as a director with Hacksaw Ridge,
Yeah.
which is like widely acknowledged by the Academy. I think it was nominated for Best Picture. Andrew Garfield was nominated for Best Actor in that movie, a war film, in 2016. And then 9 years go by, nothing.
Yeah.
And now Flight Risk.
Well, 2016 to 2025 is an interesting time in American history.
It certainly is. You could make the case that this is a well-timed return for him.
Sure.
You could say it's odd that he wasn't given a chance in 2017. Apparently the Resurrection of the Christ is coming. His sequel to The Passion of the Christ.
Are you
This is
serious?
his film he's been working on. Apparently it's coming this year.
Do you think he did Flight Risk to prove that, like, you can insure me? Like, I will.
I think it's a good theory. I believe the Resurrection of the Christ he is funding. So
Because it's worth mentioning that while he has been in, let's just say, director jail, whether that's true or not, he has been making 4 to 5 straight to VOD B movies a year.
yes.
Bandit, Hot Seat, Confidential Informant, Desperation Road, Boneyard. Now, he has made one very good film, which is Dragged Across Concrete. I will say he and Vince Vaughn are amazing in that.
Mhm.
That was 2018. But for the most part, has been in the wilderness for the last decade.
I think with the exception of Father Stew, which is when he first collaborated with Mark Wahlberg
Right.
a few years ago, I don't think he's made a studio movie because Dragged Across Concrete is not a studio movie. Not since The Expendables 3. Oh no, I'm wrong. It's actually Daddy's Home 2 when he and Mark Wahlberg connected, which I know is your favorite film of 2017, where he played his dad.
Yeah.
Have you seen this?
I have not seen either Daddy's Home.
Daddy's Home 2 stars Will Ferrell and John Lithgow as father and son, and Mark Wahlberg and Mel Gibson as father and son.
So it's just meet the parents.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Is Flight Risk the worst movie ever directed by an Academy Award winner? It's got to be up there.
That's a really great question. How in deep do you want to get into this question? 'Cause
Like,
I'll just call up best directors.
Should we revisit the early works of John Ford and just see how those 1920s
That's
silents
true.
stack up to Flight Risk? It's got to be way up there.
I mean, it's impossible to tell just based on like looking at the names because I don't have their filmographies in front of me. Haggis has made some shit, right? Has Paul Haggis never made?
I think Crash is his worst movie.
Yeah.
Like In the Valley of Ella is not a bad movie. Anyway, maybe some fodder for the listeners at home to think about. Flight Risk, I wouldn't recommend it, and yet tremendously watchable. This is the power of Dumpuary. This movie's doing fairly well at the box office.
And that's the thing is that this is it's a real best of times, worst of times part of the year where all of the big films from the previous year are being endlessly circulated and
Mhm.
celebrated.
Mhm.
But deep down secretly, that little demon inside of you just wants to watch Wolfman and Flight Risk.
What about presence? How do you think that figures into the equation? Because it is a genre movie. It is from a legitimately talented Best Director winner. 2 movies from Best Director winners this month.
Mhm.
It's written by David Koepp. This is the second of 3 collaborations between
Yep.
Steven Soderbergh and David Koepp, who is, I think you could say, very much in the conversation for most successful screenwriter of the last
Jurassic
35
Park,
years.
et cetera.
Yes.
Yeah.
Written many, many, many hit films over the years. Lucy Liu, Chris Sullivan, Kalyani Lang are the stars of the movie. It's a movie
Julia
about
Fox is also in it as a real estate agent.
how'd you feel about her performance?
I thought she was born to do it.
She was very funny. A family becomes convinced they are not alone after moving into their new home in the suburbs, and we very quickly learn that this is a perspectival movie seen through the eyes of a ghost. And since Steven Soderbergh is the camera operator on all of his movies, He is literally the ghost moving through this house. The movie is set almost entirely inside of this house, just like all of these other films we're talking about here today, which are very intimate. What do you think of
Awesome.
Presence?
Awesome movie. Incredible movie. Really, actually quite moving at the end. Not unlike No Sudden Move, which is one of my favorite movies of the decade that Soderbergh directed during the great Max straight to streaming run
Mhm.
in 2020. I feel like this really lingers after it's gone. And you start thinking about the distancing techniques that he uses formally. So the idea that there's not a lot of traditional coverage of what would have been family dinners, family arguments, family moments of intimacy. Like you don't get like close up medium.
Nothing
like,
over the shoulder.
it's
yeah.
all like this wandering eye, which is a ghost because of like the sort of setup to the film, like because of the promotional materials and the ideas. But it really started making me about like self-surveillance
Mhm.
and about the idea of like how much intimacy we have with each other without really knowing each other, because you like know where people are and know what they're doing. And like the son, who turns out to be something of a bully, is sharing with his mom the photos he's taken of this victimized girl and laughing about it. And it's just such a thought-provoking piece over the course of 82 minutes
Very
or
short.
something like that.
Mhm.
And on top of it all, it's like a rock solid screenplay that has like really intriguing elements of like what's Lucy Liu's character's deal, and Chris Sullivan's does a fantastic job
Excellent
as like
performance.
dad of the year.
Yep.
And I don't know, I just love this movie.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And I think the screenplay is pretty smart. So Soderbergh told me that it was his idea and he brought it to Kep, and Kep fleshed out the story of the family.
Was he like, I want to do a ghost story from the perspective of a ghost? Okay.
Yes. And it was like all in one house. This house is, he seemed to have like the bones of the story clearly. But I think they make a good choice by signaling a lot of things about why families are the way that they are without coming out and saying them. For example, in the story, Lucy Liu's character has clearly, whether she's committed a crime or there's some sort of like financial fraudulence in play, we never really get the details of it.
Yes.
Like that's actually not the point. The point is that there is all of this subterranean activity, even within families, even within the deepest relationships. And the only people who would know about them are the people who are in the house. And even then, what you keep from your kids, what you keep from your spouse. We saw there's that one sequence where Chris Sullivan's character goes outside to have a phone conversation on the balcony, which is like riveting.
Yeah.
Even though you have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, he's calling like a lawyer friend to be like hypothetically if X, Y, or Z was happening. There's so many scenes that essentially build this statement that if this is a horror movie, the horror movie is being a family.
Yes,
The
exactly.
horror is you're in this house trapped with these people, and how much can you actually ever really know another person?
Right.
So the son, who's supposed to be a star athlete, seems to be something of a sadist. The daughter, who while is like in recovery from a friend of hers losing her life to a drug overdose, also is still using. The mom, who is like this alpha-driven lawyer, has like borderline inappropriate affection for her son.
Mhm.
And then the father is just bouncing around trying to make sense of it all and basically living a life of utter loneliness. And it's like a pretty staggering portrait of a family, made all the more so because of the brevity of the film and also the visual language that it's speaking in, because you're not getting the traditional, oh, this is this guy's standalone monologue scene that's on his face and this is his award reel. It just makes you think so much about film language, and it makes you think a lot about family and death.
Yeah, it's very sophisticated and very simple at the same time, which has become really Soderbergh's trademark over the last 10 years in particular. And I asked him about this, and I couldn't tell when I asked him about it whether or not he had seen these movies, but it made me think a lot about Nickel Boys and Here, which are also movies very much about perspective that are shot in confined circumstances for the most part. And, Nickel Boys specifically is also a first-person movie. These are not the first two first-person movies ever made, but they're both really audacious and upend our expectations of a traditional narrative movie. It's not your, usual like whodunit the way that like The Lady in the Lake is. And this is like, to me, this is kind of charting a path for what movies for adults can be, which is that like this movie was made very modestly. Like he shoots and edits these films
As he goes, yeah.
He did it clearly in less than a month. they need a good script and a solid cast, and you need to be able to execute. He talked about like the shoes he had to wear to walk through the house while wearing, while shooting the movie. Like there were very specific choices that were made that you'd really have to think hard about. But it's a movie that I think does reward thinking hard about it. The actual like mystery of the movie, I think, is fine. It serves its purpose. If you're going in expecting jump scares and a deathly presence with a ghost story, it's not quite that kind of story. So you should adjust your expectations.
No, but it does have a pretty cool twist.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Anyhow, really good.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I mean, I'm sure you discussed this with him to some extent, but where your head is at on this period of Soderbergh, this, I think, that he'd had his straight to streaming era of like The Laundromat and High Flying Bird. High Flying Bird?
High Flying Bird.
High Flying Bird.
The Laundromat, No Sudden Move.
Yeah.
The Meryl Streep film, which is escaping me.
People Will Talk.
People Will Talk.
Let them all talk. Let them all talk.
And then Kimmy. And Kimmy was his first movie with David Koepp. And I think the new conversation starts with Black Bag.
Yeah.
Black Bag is coming out in less than 2 months. It's a spy thriller starring 2 huge movie stars in Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett. Also written by Koepp, and Focus is putting it out. This is his first theatrical release since, is it Logan Lucky? I mean, is that possible?
You might be right.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's almost 10 years that he hasn't been in movie theaters. So I'm curious to see if that begins a new stretch.
Yeah. Well, also, I haven't seen it. I can't wait to see if he, knowing it's going into theaters and knowing it's getting a wide theatrical release, like comes back to the middle formally a little bit.
I mean, we could use him in terms of those kinds of movies right now.
But I don't know if that interests him, and I'm maybe he's just like, actually, I'm out here and I'm like creating a new kind of visual language to make narrative films here. Not a new one, but a one that I'm teaching people to like these odd lens choices and like these kind of like doing away with certain aspects of coverage and the crutches you think you need to get through a scene. I don't have them.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the thing that we can say is that since he came out of his retirement, I guess Unsane was his last theatrical release, by the way, which is in 2018. So since he came back with Logan Lucky in 2017, he's made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 features in 7.5 years.
Yeah.
He's also made Mosaic and Full Circle and Command Z. So 3 TV series and these films.
Yeah.
So I guess Magic Mike's Last Dance was a theatrical release, so I'm misspeaking here, but it was commissioned to be a streaming only movie that they decided to put into movie theaters. I don't know. It's a fascinating stretch, but it never felt like he was really in the zeitgeist with any of these movies. And I think that's maybe the thing he doesn't care about as much.
Yeah, it's also been cool to think about how we're going to look back on this era of movies in general, because I feel like I banged the drum for a few of these films pretty hard, but none of them have the cult classic vibe that Haywire does.
It's true.
And I don't know why that is. I don't know why it is that like a film that was released straight to Max or a movie that's, let's just say, buried somewhere in the Netflix library that was really provocative, like The Laundromat, or beautiful, like...
I mean, you know why. It's because most people don't know these movies exist because they went straight to streaming.
But conversely, like they're just at people's fingertips. Like if you have the service that shows White Lotus and the service that has Stranger Things, like I know.
I feel very strongly about this.
Yeah.
You got to put the movies in movie theaters to make them real movies. I did ask Soderbergh about that. I think if a movie like Kimmy had gotten a month in movie theaters and gotten commercials during the NFL playoffs, there would just be a different idea of it in people's heads.
Yeah.
And it would be more likely to achieve that cult status that you're talking about. Now, it doesn't mean that all of them do. Magic Mike's Last Dance did get in. And I think people were kind of like, this doesn't feel totally fleshed out. It's okay.
Yeah. It seems like you guys wanted to do these 3 dance sequences and then built a movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Kimmy, No Sudden Move, Let Them All Talk, High Flying Bird, Laundromat. These are all good movies.
Yeah.
They're all interesting. They're all dynamic. They're all different. They're not the same. And yet they don't have this big weight. It doesn't feel like Presence is necessarily going to have this big weight either, but it's very much worth people's time. So, Soderbergh, he's in his 60s. He's still as interesting as a filmmaker as he's ever been.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
To be continued, Sean.
Thanks to CR. Thank you to Amanda. And thank you to Yasi. Thanks to Jack Sanders and our producer, Bobby Wagner, for his work on today's episode. Later this week, Amanda and I are going to dig into The Brutalist, and we're going to rank some Best Picture nominees with Joanna Robinson. Brutalist, yay? Nay?
Yay.
Yay.
Do you feel like, has there been a massive change in Best Picture rankings since the last time you did it?
I don't want to give away my hand.
Okay.
I mean, scandals anew bursting every day. So probably by the time we record on Thursday, who
What
knows?
will Oppo research have for us by then?
Yeah, how will Emilia Perez be felled once more? You know, we'll see. Will you have seen the film by next Thursday?
The second half of the film?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
Am I on that pod? Do I have to?
No.
Okay.
And frankly, I don't care. See you next time.